came home from work late, and when I knocked on the door, a shirtless drunk man opened my door. Then, hey Reddit, longtime user of Reddit, but this is my first time posting on here. I've always been scared of putting my drama out there for people to see because I felt ashamed, but now I couldn't care less about that. I feel broken, I feel used, I feel like my world has just ended and I don't know what to do. My name is Dawson and I'm a 33-year-old man, so yeah, still pretty young, not like I'm old or anything that my wife has to seek pleasure elsewhere. My wife's name is Veronica and she is 32. Veronica and I have been married for about a year, but we've known each other for practically all our lives. We've been childhood sweethearts and then dated all the way from high school into college. We were the kind of couple you'd expect to spend the rest of their lives together. We have a 2-year-old who is my world. Our relationship has always been something I cherish deeply. From the days of awkward teenage crushes to the time we exchanged vows, I believed Veronica and I were meant to be, and that was why I ignored a lot of the red flags. We had our ups and downs like any other couple, but nothing ever prepared me for what happened recently. I'm sharing this because I need to get it off my chest, and maybe, just maybe, someone out there has some advice or has gone through something similar. Let me just start by saying I grew up in a very harmful and religious environment and I never escaped. My family and the church didn't believe in divorce. They preached that marriage was a sacred bond that should never be broken, no matter the circumstances. This made me feel trapped, especially when things with Veronica started to go downhill. My family thought Veronica was perfect and could do no wrong when in fact she did a lot of wrong. Even when I talked to them about the issues we were having, they would always spin it and put the blame on me. They would say things like, "You need to be more understanding," or "She's just stressed with the baby," completely ignoring the fact that she was treating me poorly. They were also the only ones I could talk to. From a young age, I was taught that therapy was fake, a sin, and a scam. The church instilled in us that seeking help outside of prayer and religious counsel was a sign of weakness and lack of faith. I know now that's not true, but I just cannot get rid of the doctrine that has been drilled into my head for so long. This made it incredibly difficult for me to reach out for professional help or even to friends outside the church. The fear of being judged or shunned was always looming over me. I'm still scared of my parents. Their influence over me is so strong that it's hard to break free from it, even now. I think all these factors made me blind to the red flags Veronica blatantly displayed. Her manipulation, her refusal to contribute financially, her extravagant spending, and her constant belittling of me were things I should have seen coming. But I was so conditioned to believe that my role was to endure and provide, no matter the cost to my own well-being. I paid all the bills because Veronica refused to get a job even before we had our kid. She could never stay at a job for long, and there was always something wrong with either the job or her co-workers. After jumping from job to job, she eventually just stopped searching and refused to even consider it whenever I brought it up. She would turn it on me and even got my parents involved because she knew they would back her up. And they did, every single time. They said it was my duty as a man to work and pay the bills, and that it wasn't Veronica's duty. After that, Veronica completely refused to get a job. Then she started insisting we get married. I refused because my parents didn't have the healthiest marriage. They had stayed together for the kids, and because they didn't believe in divorce, and that had really worsened my view on marriage. But Veronica was persistent. Then she got pregnant. At the time, I thought it was just a birth control accident, but now I realized that she must have trapped me with the pregnancy. After that, she got my parents involved again, and they proceeded to gaslight and pressure me for about a year until I finally gave in and married her. The wedding itself was a nightmare. I could write a whole book about it. Veronica overruled all my decisions, forcing me to pay for the whole thing and still insisting on an expensive ceremony despite the fact that she wasn't contributing a dime. She even forced me to pay for an expensive honeymoon. I had no say in anything. She dictated everything, and I was left footing the bill for it all. After the wedding, Veronica truly showed her true colors. She told me she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom because of our kid, claiming she noticed how hard I was working to cover the bills and wanted to help by being there for our child. At first, I thought it was a selfless decision on her part, but I soon realized it was all a facade. One day while she was out, I checked her phone and found messages between her and her friends. She was mocking me, calling me stupid and laughing about how she never intended to return to work. It was a crushing revelation. She had manipulated me into believing she was making a sacrifice for our family when, in reality, she was just looking for a way out of working. I confronted her about the messages and tried to discuss it with my parents, hoping they would see my side. But they defended her, saying she must have been stressed by me and the baby, and that's why she said those things. Veronica, of course, denied everything and turned it around on me, claiming I was invading her privacy and being paranoid. Until now, I never realized how much she had isolated me from my own family. She would twist situations and conversations to make it seem like I was the unreasonable one. She turned my own parents against me. They took her side in every argument, and I felt completely alone. Then she stopped doing her chores. Despite the fact that I paid all the bills, I still split the chores and even childcare with Veronica. I didn't care that I had to be up early for work. I would still get up at night if the baby cried. I made sure to split the chores with her 50-50, and still she wouldn't do her part. Whenever I talked to her about it, she would brush me off, saying her hands were full with our toddler, which I tried to understand. But the truth was, I helped with childcare a lot, and she wasn't always busy with our toddler. My parents came over frequently, and they always helped with the baby, so it's not like she was overwhelmed all the time. Plus, my parents even babysat for free, which gave her plenty of opportunities to get things done. Despite all this support, she refused to contribute to the household chores. The dishes would pile up until I attended to them. The laundry remained undone until I could get them done. And the house was in a constant state of disarray until whenever I was chanced and had free time to clean and arrange. It wasn't just about the chores, though. It was about the complete lack of respect and appreciation for everything I was doing. I was working long hours to provide for our family and still coming home to take care of the baby and the household. Yet Veronica acted like it was all my responsibility. When I tried to address the issue, she would become defensive and accuse me of not understanding how hard it was to be a stay-at-home mom. She claimed she was exhausted from taking care of our toddler all day, but I knew that wasn't the whole truth. There were plenty of times when I came home to find her on her phone, watching TV, or out with friends while my parents were watching the baby. It became clear that Veronica was taking advantage of the situation. She enjoyed the perks of being a stay-at-home mom without actually fulfilling the responsibilities that came with it. I was left to juggle work, childcare, and housework while she did as she pleased. It was frustrating and disheartening to see how little she cared about contributing to our household. I started to dread coming home, knowing that I would be met with a mess and a list of complaints from Veronica. Instead, I felt like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, with no support from the person who was supposed to be my partner. And then she started quarreling with me more. She said I was no fun anymore and was now boring. It felt like every little thing I did annoyed her. She said I was distant, which I wasn't. She was the distant one. It was like she was rewriting our history to fit her narrative. She would find fault in everything I did. If I left a dish in the sink, she'd blow up. If I came home 5 minutes later than expected, she'd accuse me of not caring about her and the baby. She'd scream at me over the smallest things, turn minor disagreements into full-blown arguments. It felt like I was walking on eggshells. I never knew what would set her off next. Whenever we had an argument, she would threaten me. She'd say things like, "You'll regret this," or "You'll be sorry if you don't start treating me better." It was manipulative and emotionally draining. I didn't know how to respond to her threats. I just wanted peace in our home. She started making expensive purchases without telling me. Our finances were supposed to be a shared responsibility, but she acted like my credit card was her personal bank account. One time, she ordered a $700 purse with my credit card. When I confronted her about it, she screamed at me and started accusing me of being controlling and stingy. To make matters worse, she got my parents to back her up. They said that my money was her money and that I had no right to question her purchases. It was infuriating. I felt like I had no allies, no one who understood what I was going through. She refused to discuss the purchases with me. Whenever I tried to bring it up, she'd dismiss me or change the subject. She acted like she was entitled to spend however she wanted, without any consideration for our budget or financial goals. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the lack of respect and communication. These issues weren't just isolated incidents. They were part of a larger pattern. She was becoming increasingly controlling and abusive. Her behavior was pushing me further away, and no matter how hard I tried to fix things, it never seemed to be enough. I wanted to make our marriage work, but it was becoming impossible. The constant fighting, the threats, the financial irresponsibility, it was all too much. I was losing hope, and I didn't know how much longer I could hold on. I should have left sooner, but I was scared not just for me, but for the baby too. She also started to nitpick on everything. The sex, the intimacy, everything. She complained that we weren't having sex enough and that I was too much of a softie. Mind you, we were having sex about 3 or 4 times a week, but it still wasn't enough for her. She would constantly bring up how I wasn't satisfying her needs, and it felt like nothing I did was ever good enough. I was trying my best to keep her happy, but it seemed like the goalposts kept moving. Then she started becoming really secretive with her phone. She demanded I share my location with her, but refused to share hers with me. My parents backed her up, saying she was basically home all day as a stay-at-home parent while I worked. They argued that she needed to know where I was in case of an emergency, and that I should trust her since she was with the baby all the time. I relented and shared my location, but she didn't share hers. She would randomly accuse me of cheating, despite the fact that she was being so weird and secretive. It was like she was projecting her guilt onto me, trying to make me the bad guy. She changed her phone password and was always smiling at her screen, which, mind you, is fine on its own, but it's the way she was so secretive about it that raised red flags. She'd be texting someone, and when I'd ask who it was, she'd just say it was a friend and quickly put her phone away. It wasn't just her secrecy that bothered me. It was the sudden shift in her behavior. She stopped being affectionate and started finding excuses to avoid spending time together. She'd go out shopping or running errands for hours, and when I'd ask about her day, she'd give vague answers. I felt more like a stranger in my own home. I tried to talk to her about it, but every conversation turned into an argument. She'd accuse me of being paranoid or controlling, and it always ended with her storming off. I felt confused and hurt. I wanted to believe her, to trust that she was just going through a phase, but the signs were hard to ignore. It wasn't just about the lack of sex or the constant nitpicking. It was about the erosion of trust and connection. I was losing my wife, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Little did I know that my wife was cheating on me big time. She was using me, even manipulating my parents. Yesterday, I finished work much later than usual. I texted my wife to say I might work overnight, but then I didn't need to stay overnight. I wanted to text her and tell her, but changed my mind. Instead, I planned a surprise, takeout and a mini date at home. Lately, things had been tense between us, and I hoped this would help us reconnect. Our son was staying at my parents' place, which is also something we'd argued about recently, but didn't seem important now. When I got home and knocked on the door, a shirtless drunk guy opened it. He looked confused, then shocked to see me. That's when it hit me. My wife had been cheating. The guy just stupidly stood there, unsure what to do, frozen in place. I rushed upstairs, hoping for an explanation from my wife, only to find her fast asleep in bed. I was confused and hurt. I hurried back downstairs, but the guy had already left. The shock hit me hard. Betrayal, anger, disbelief. It all rushed through my mind. How long had this been happening? Who was this guy? Why would my wife do this? I felt furious and heartbroken. I was livid and hurt. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to wake her up and demand answers, but I couldn't stand the sight of her. So, fueled by anger and betrayal, I grabbed some clothes and got out of there while she was still asleep. I drove straight to my parents' place, where they were surprised to see me and instantly knew something was wrong. I didn't feel like talking, so I just checked on our sleeping kid, then crashed in my old room. This morning, my phone won't stop buzzing with calls and texts from my wife. I'm avoiding picking up because I don't know what to say to her. I'm guessing she already knows what's up, especially if she's been in touch with that drunk guy from last night. So here I am trying to distract myself on Reddit, just trying to make sense of it all. Update. Hey Reddit, hi, it's been a few days. I apologize. Things have been pretty tough. I really appreciate the support. It has been so helpful. When I made this post, it was just a rant. I genuinely was not expecting the amount of traffic it got. Now let's just hope this doesn't somehow find its way to my wife, or should I say my ex-wife, LOL. I'm going to try and answer a few frequent questions that I saw before moving on to the update. What was the fight I had with my wife about our baby's sleepover at my parents' place? Like I mentioned before, that isn't really important for context. But basically, I thought and still think our baby is too young for sleepovers with my parents. He's just 2, but my wife disagreed and said she needs breaks every now and then. She gets lots of breaks, and I always relieve her of the baby when I come back from work. She also knew how I felt about my parents and that I didn't want my kid growing up very close to them because of their doctrines. But because my parents always picked her side, she disagreed with me on that too. Who was the drunk guy at our house? I don't know him, but I have now confirmed that my wife was indeed sleeping with him. Will I be getting a divorce? Yes, cheating was the final nail in the coffin. Do I have a lawyer? Yes, he's a close friend and I will be reaching out to him. Those are basically the most frequent questions I noticed. I haven't updated sooner because work and coming to terms with things are kind of tough for me. I have talked to my boss and she was very empathetic and said she would give me a break if I wanted. I rejected it though, as I think I would go crazy. The only thing keeping me sane now is the baby and work. As for actual updates, I'm sorry to say not much has happened. Like I said, my wife started bombarding me with calls a lot, and at some point she called my parents. I don't know what she told them, but my parents came into my room and started berating me. I finally had to explain to them what happened, and then they finally relaxed. They said that wasn't what my wife had told them, but they also refused to tell me what she had said. My parents then left to call my wife, and after a while they came back and told me that I would have to try and forgive her, as divorce is not an option and that she was genuinely sorry. I told them to leave my room because I needed time to think. They obeyed and left, and that was when I finally called my wife and told her that I was done and she had to be cheating on me. We had a long conversation, which I'm obviously not going to reiterate word for word, but basically she admitted to cheating on me with that guy. She said they had gotten drunk and she apologized for it. That's when I told her there was no need because I wanted a divorce. She freaked out, hung up on me, and immediately called my parents, who came back to the room to tell me divorce was a sin. I told them to leave me alone, and I've been ignoring them for the past couple of days. I've been ignoring my wife's calls and ignoring my parents too. Thankfully, my wife hasn't tried to come and take the baby. I've been spending every free moment I have with him. Thanks for reading, and thank you to all those who checked up on me and direct messaged me. I really appreciate it. I couldn't reply to all the messages because there are a lot, but rest assured I'll read them all. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me again. Thank you all for the positive comments. They keep on coming, and it really means a lot. I haven't updated in a while, and I apologize for that, but I finally have an update now. You guys have been messaging me requesting an update, and I appreciate the concern. It's been a few weeks, about 2 weeks since my last update, and things have been wild. First of all, when my parents realized I was dead serious about the divorce, they kind of panicked. They kept giving me sermons about how it was a sin and that I would go to hell. Honestly, that made something in me snap. I exploded on my parents. I told them they needed to stop trying to dictate my life and that I was an adult, not some kid. I told them I was not only getting a divorce, but I was also done with the church. I told them I wouldn't be attending anymore because it was a horrible and judgmental place. My parents freaked out, and the next day when I came back from work, I came home to an intervention. My parents had invited the pastor, some church members, and my wife. I didn't want to seem crazy. I knew how they could spin stories, so I sat down with them, talked, and calmly explained my reasons. When I saw they wouldn't see reason, I took the baby and left the house. It was great. I took the baby to get ice cream and we just walked around for a bit. Mainly I carried him, but I didn't mind. I got back home hours later and they had all left except my parents. But I knew I would never be at peace, so I told my parents that I was moving out. They freaked out and tried to convince me not to, but I refused to listen. I'll be moving in with a friend soon and I feel happy about it. I'll also be meeting up with my lawyer friends soon, as they were out of town and have only just returned. That's it for now. I'll update when I have more to share. Thanks again for all the support. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me again. I promised to update once I had more to share, so here we go. It's only been a week since my last update, but a lot has happened. First of all, I've moved out like I said I would. My parents at some point thought I was joking since I didn't move out instantly. They were shocked when I finally did. They called me a lot of things and tried to gaslight and manipulate me. But this time I didn't listen. They even tried to refuse to let me leave with the baby, but I just told them I would call the police. Now I'm at my friend's place and I feel better and at peace. I also met up with my lawyer friend and it went great. Let me fill you guys in. I own the house where my wife is currently staying. I just haven't had the strength to kick her out yet, but my lawyer will be handling that now. Thankfully, since I already owned the house before I married my wife, it can't be considered a marital asset and is mine solely. The house was a gift from my grandfather. Also, since we live in a state where once you cheat, you automatically give up custody, I have good chances of getting the baby, which is the one thing I am really ready to fight for. This legal edge has been a huge relief, and it gives me hope that I can secure a stable environment for my child. In terms of my relationship with my parents, it's been a roller coaster. They were devastated and angry when I moved out. They bombarded me with calls and messages, trying to guilt trip me into returning and patching things up with my wife. But I stood my ground. I made it clear that their manipulation tactics wouldn't work on me anymore. They even attempted to involve other family members and friends to pressure me. But I explained my side to everyone, and most of them understood and supported my decision. I told the ones that didn't to go kick rocks. Living with my friend has been a breath of fresh air. I'm finally away from the toxic environment and constant scrutiny. My friend has been incredibly supportive, offering a listening ear and helping out with the baby. We've been settling into a new routine, and for the first time in a long while, I feel very hopeful about the future. I've also started seeking professional help to deal with everything. Despite my upbringing, I decided to see a therapist. I'm still on the wait list, so I can't say much on this yet. As for my wife, she's still trying to reach out, sending messages and calling nonstop. She's apologized profusely, claiming she made a mistake and wants to work things out. But I've made it clear that there's no going back. The trust is broken, and I can't subject myself or our child to that kind of instability. I'm taking things one step at a time, focusing on creating a better life for me and my child. There's still a long road ahead, but I'm ready to face whatever comes next. Thank you all for your continued support and kind words. They've meant the world to me during this tough time. I'll keep you posted with any new updates. Update. Hey Reddit, it's been a while, months to be precise. I apologize for not updating in such a long time. Life got busy and I kind of forgot about Reddit. I owe you guys an update and I apologize for not giving it sooner. First of all, the divorce has been finalized and I am now low contact with my parents and my ex. There isn't really much to talk about the court proceedings. It was a quick battle, thankfully. She had cheated and the laws are the laws. She lost custody. She actually caused a ruckus in court because of that. She didn't get anything, not alimony, not even anything from the house. We had only been married for a year, so we didn't have any debts to split. Everyone just kind of separated our finances and went our own ways. I got custody and she got visitation rights, which was the best thing. She still tried to approach me and fix things outside the courthouse, but I just ignored her and told her never to contact me unless it was about the baby. And that's it. I also got a raise at work, which means more money for me, but also longer hours. I do juggle everything well, though. I still spend a lot of time with the baby and sometimes even take him with me to work. He only has a little while until he starts preschool. Remember in my last post, I mentioned that my lawyer would be helping me kick out Veronica. At first, she refused to leave as she had nowhere to go, but eventually she got evicted. I moved back into the house because even though it had bad memories, it was the closest to work and had a shorter commute than my friend's house. And that's my life now. I don't talk to my ex much unless it's about the kid, and I also rarely talk to my parents. I no longer go to church, and I am in such a happy place. I'm also in therapy, which has been so helpful. Thank you guys so much. Your comments meant so much to me and helped me when I was in such a dark place. I will forever appreciate it, and I hope no one else goes through such a situation. Life is a lot better now. I found peace and happiness, and I'm focusing on creating a positive environment for my child. The support from this community has been invaluable, and I'm grateful for every piece of advice and encouragement I received. Thank you all again. Take care, everyone.